getting your work out there is never a bad thing. You should never be afraid of the rejection of it. As long as you feel good about your work, the work you're creating, and it sits well with you, I wouldn't put pressure on yourself to be accepted. Just see where it can take you.
Welcome to the She Clicks Women in Photography podcast. I'm Angela Nicholson, and I'm the founder of She Clicks, which is a community for female photographers. In these podcasts, I talk with women in the photographic industry to hear about their experiences, what drives them, and how they got to where they are now. Our guest today is Delaney McQuown, a photographer, digital technician, and artist based in Cincinnati. Delaney won the 2024 Claire Aho Award for Women Photographers in the Pink Lady Food Photographer of the Year Awards, now the World Food Photography Awards. She urges women to find liberation through unidealised self-images and exist unapologetically in photos. Hi Delaney, thank you so much for joining me today on the She Clicks Women in Photography podcast.
Hi Angela, thank you so much for having me.
It's really nice to be able to catch up with you because I was hoping we were going to meet at the Pink Lady Food Photography Awards, now of course the World Food Photography Awards. But unfortunately I got COVID and was unable to see you receiving your fantastic trophy.
Yeah, I know that's such a bummer we didn't get to meet, but that was such an exciting experience for me, especially because I'm from the United States. So getting to go to London to be a part of that was an awesome experience.
Oh, great. Yeah, and your image was absolutely fantastic. I really loved it. So you won the Claire Aho Award for Women Photographers. Brilliant.
I did. Thank you so much.
So can we start by hearing how you first got interested in photography?
Yeah. So I've always been super artistic. You know, I'd love to draw and paint. My mom always claims we get our creativity from her. She doesn't necessarily have the artistic abilities, but she is very creative. So I grew up in a household that really supports the arts. And when we were young, we took art lessons from a local artist in our town and just kind of were always being creative. And through trying all the different mediums that exist, painting or switching and doing photography, that's where I found photography and I found my love for it. And, you know, that's just been such an exciting thing for me to be able to figure out how to go from one and how one, like drawing, implements photography as well, and vice versa. So that's kind of how I got started. So that was probably around when I was 14, but I knew for sure I wanted to do that as a career, and I wanted to do something related to the arts when I went to school. So I went to school for fine arts as well.
Well, like college?
Yes, for college. The University of Cincinnati here in Ohio, and I went for fine arts, but I focused in photography.
Oh, fantastic. So how did you actually get your first job in photography?
The reason I chose the school that I did for college was I chose because it had something called a co-op program. And essentially, it's an internship program where you alternate semesters of school with semesters of work. And so ultimately, that's why I chose that school, because I knew I wanted to get world experience before being tossed out. So I ended up doing 4 internships total before graduation. And that was awesome because, again, I knew I wanted to do something in the arts field, but I didn't know for sure I would end up in photography. So it allowed me to try different types of things. Like I assisted a studio artist who does textiles. I illustrated a book for children. And then my last co-op, I was able to work at a commercial photography studio. And I worked there up until I graduated, and then they hired me full time. And that's where I found that I really was passionate about photo and using that in my studio practice, as well as working with that as well.
Now, you shoot a lot of product photography, don't you? How do you keep that fresh? Because, you know, your pictures are really vibrant and exciting. How do you maintain that?
Oh, thank you. I absolutely love working with color. Again, I went to school for fine art, so a lot of my classes were conceptual-based thinking, the complete opposite of what commercial photography is, which is advertising and selling something to you. So I really have this strong conceptual background. So I still work at that to this day of trying to figure out how to find that balance between like my conceptual work and my commercial work. And so it's an ongoing journey, but I just use aesthetics to kind of speak to me as well. And I know one thing, and I like to stay true to my natural hand, whatever it wants to do. And that's color, bold, vibrant, and fun. So that's why my commercial work seems to be living in that state right now.
That really comes across. So what is your ideal brief for a shoot when you have a day at work?
When we have work, so and I guess maybe I'll touch on this a little bit as well. I am newly a commercial photographer here. So when I was first hired, I was a photo assistant. So which means I got to be a huge part of sets and set culture and, helping with file naming, file organization, but then also the creative aspect of creating a shoot and making it come to life. Within the past month, they've recently started promoting me as a photographer on their website, which is so exciting. It's been a really good new chapter, but I'm still in the early stages of working with clients and things like that, building confidence there. But usually a lot of the things we start with is things start with a deck from the client, and then they kind of have their ideas of the vision they want to execute, and we meet with them and work with them, and then from that point on, it gets into the actual shoot date of executing their vision. But it's really cool just to be a part of that whole journey. Like, even if you're just on set, you feel the creative energy. And I think that's what I'm most grateful for. I work, and also I should say the name of my company. It's OMS Photography. And I work with an amazing amount of creative individuals who are supportive. And I have my personal practice on the side, which maybe we'll touch base on a little bit. They're so supportive of it. It's the only reason I was able to get to London to go to that contest is they submitted on my behalf. And yeah, so I'm just really grateful to be working with creatives and be surrounded. I couldn't have asked for a better place to support me in my work.
That sounds fantastic. So did they submit your entry for the Claire Aho Award for Women Photographers, or was that driven by you?
So it was driven by me, but our marketing person, Molly, had found the competition, and she sent out an email to the people at our company and was like, if anybody wants to submit to this, I'm going to send you the link so you can do so. So then I did submit, but I was a little nervous because I did end up submitting a piece of work from, my personal side practice, which was self-portraiture, whereas a lot of my peers were submitting their very commercial things. And so I was a little nervous, but I did do it. And I'm really glad that it was brought to my attention. And that's how I found out about it in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic picture. If anyone hasn't seen it yet, I urge them to have a look. You can have a look on the World Food Photography Awards website. You can see it in the gallery there. And actually, when I first saw it, I didn't realise it was a self-portrait. It was only later that I realised it was, because it feels like a very private moment that that the person being photographed isn't aware of. And there's fantastic elements to it, because you're eating a BLT, aren't you? And sort of just sitting in the morning sunshine after a shower or something. It's a very atmospheric picture.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your project?
When I was in school, again, I started taking photos around 14. And a lot of the times I was my own subject just because of the accessibility. And that's kind of how I learned the camera. But, as I grew up, the image I was taking of myself, my body started to change and fluctuate. And the images I took of myself as a child, I no longer really looked like that as I'm practicing with the camera. And, I had this moment where this confrontation of my own image was really hard to bear. It was like, I don't like the way I look in these images. And I feel like women specifically have this problem where we hate photos of ourselves. You ask anyone across all generations, a lot of times women specifically do not like certain photos of themselves, and we want to be represented in a good light. But I wanted to use the camera as a form of finding self-acceptance. So I decided, if I'm not happy with these images right now, the only way that I can cope with them is maybe if I take hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of images, I'll become neutral to my own image. The more times I see myself, I have to become neutral at some point. And it totally worked. And through school, that's what my personal practice was. It was kind of using photos as therapy to investigate myself and kind of proclaim myself. Here, this is what I am. It is what it is. And in more recent years, now that I'm getting older, at the commercial studio, we work and we do a lot of portraits of people. And again, it just reiterates this fact that we'll have women come into the studio that are like, oh, can I come back and get my portrait tomorrow? I don't like it. And then we'll have guys who will be like, oh, that's great. I don't care. You can pick for me. And it's interesting that's always echoing in my head. So now I've started to expand my process, and I want to kind of share this liberating feeling that I discovered with my connection through the camera. I want to share that liberating experience with other women by creating a space for them to play and have fun and be comfortable, and by being maybe uncomfortable with the image of themselves.
Do you feel like you're starting to make or to have an impact now with that?
I think so. I'm very early on this new series because, it was predominantly myself. But I put out like a photo call on Instagram, and I got floods of responses from women around my area who wanted to be a part of the project, which was so exciting. So I've done 2 photo shoots for that so far, and both have been completely rewarding experiences. But it's also been kind of a challenge as well, because the last thing I ever want to do is have people feel bad about themselves and take that away from the photo shoot. So it's like this fine line of trying to communicate that these images are supposed to be idolized images of yourself. I feel like a lot of people think that this photograph needs to look beautiful. Like, we shoot for models, we shoot for different things that are supposed to be beautiful on the image. But I'm just trying to create a space that has this like childlike play where you can just let loose of all those and kind of just exist, and maybe because it's humorous, not put so much pressure on yourself to look a specific way. So there's a lot of fun and hokiness in some of those images as well, which again, you also see in my commercial work. I love the colors, the fun, the play. So it's kind of channeling both of those directions. So yeah, I've got a long way to go, and I could see this being a project I work on for years and years to come because I'm really passionate about it. But it's been great so far.
Fantastic. So with the 2 photo shoots that you've done so far, have you had to persuade your model to do anything particularly, or to convince them that, the picture you really love is the right one to go on Instagram?
Yes. So the first thing I preface with the shoots that I've done so far is I say, if at any point you are uncomfortable with the images or don't like them, I will not use them. I won't use them without your approval. We can look through the images together, decide what is working, what's not working. So I always put that out there by knowing that this can just be an experience for you if you really don't feel good about the images. And I think that's important because it lets women to kind of let their guard down a little bit. Another factor I've done to kind of try and break barriers is this specific series of photos I'm calling Swimsuit Season. And it's all women wearing their swimsuits. Because again, that's another place where we put pressure on ourselves to be a specific way and have the right body. And I want it to be this declaration of, again, this is what it is. And so a way I take a guard down there and to try and make my subjects feel comfortable is I also wear my swimsuit as I photograph you. That way we're both on equal playing grounds. The photographer doesn't have more power than you. We're both just playing. And a lot of the times they'll use props to kind of have something to do with your hands or have something fun to exude, but it gets crazy. And I think music's also really important too. Playing and having fun with the music as well.
So do you pick the music or does your subject pick the music?
So when I put out this call, when I got all the people responding, I decided I need to come up with a way to organize all the people. So I did a Google Forms survey. And in that, I asked people specific questions about themselves, how old they were when they first became aware of their body and insecure of their body, things like that. We got into deep topics, but also some really light topics, like what are your 3 favorite colors, your favorite song? And in the survey, people answered those questions. So I was able to, control the music based on what I knew they liked. And also, I think it helped me make the photo shoots feel as personable as possible, because it's just as much supposed to be for the subject as it is for myself. And I'm just trying to, again, share this like liberation I've found with others. So I want the photo shoot to feel really tailored and specific to that person.
Has winning the award had a significant impact on your career yet, or perhaps maybe the way you feel about your photography?
I think winning the award, again, it was an incredible opportunity because I had never left the United States even. So it was my first time out of the country, and then getting to go and see all this incredible work around you in an exhibit, that impacted my work tremendously because it's just so inspiring. And again, there were categories for everything imaginable, including just phone photographs. And I saw some really inspiring photography in that category that just made me think of how, like, in my own project, I use the camera, but if someone's doesn't have a camera accessible to them, they could even use their phone as the way and means to find this, acceptance with themselves. So yes, everything always makes me think, and it definitely had an impact on me in that way, in my creative side.
Would you say you feel more confident as a result of winning?
I think definitely it did help with that. Because like I said, I was even a little bit nervous to submit a self-portrait to this competition with incredible art that's quite intimidating. And, as artists, I feel like we always compare and look around us before we actually look at ourselves. So yes, I had no clue that I was winning, and it was extremely validating and exciting, and only got sparks going for me to keep continuing to work and keep submitting to things, which in school I submitted to a lot of gallery work, and kind of that tapered off once I got hired in a real adult job. But it's kind of brought that spark back as well.
Oh, great. So what tips would you give to anyone about entering competitions? I mean, how do you select your images, for example? Or do you shoot specifically for a competition?
I think if I had the right time on my hands, it's possible that I would do that. But I think right now it's just been more plausible for me to try and find galleries or call-outs based in making my work fit for those. So, but as far as organizing my artwork, I use the various platforms, but Photoshop, and there's a platform I use called Miro quite a bit, and it's online, basically a digital canvas, and you can just organize your work in that way. And I think seeing how work relates to each other is really helpful, and even making small 4x6 prints to see how your work works in relationship to another is also very helpful for me.
So, but when you're looking to specifically send just one picture, what's your process for finding the right image?
I don't know if I have a specific process. I think, when I shoot and I see an image, sometimes you just know that's the one. And so sometimes, from each shoot, I have favorites. And if the call out, it seems like it fits, sometimes I just know it fits and submit that way. I just have to trust my intuition and go by that a little bit.
Go with your gut. So BLT Contemplation, had you already shot that, or did you shoot it specifically for the competition?
I had already shot that, and I think I do work better that way. I've never shot for a submission. I would maybe consider that, but I think the work feels more candid and authentic when you're just shooting for yourself. And I think that's important. I think that's important in my process, again, because shooting for yourself is that therapeutic moment. So I try and see how it can fit with the different submissions. But yeah, I had shot that in college a few years ago, actually, probably three years ago.
Okay. So what would you say to anyone who says there's no point in entering a photographic competition because their work isn't good enough?
I would say you should by far just submit it. It doesn't hurt to submit. Just try and getting your work out there is never a bad thing. You should never be afraid of the rejection of it. As long as you feel good about your work, the work you're creating, and it sits well with you, I wouldn't put pressure on yourself to be accepted. Just see where it can take you.
Okay, good advice. I know your project has now evolved and you're photographing other people influenced by your self-portraiture, but are you still continuing with the self-portrait project?
Yes, of course. Again, I think it's important for that to be a lifelong journey, especially as I grow and change and evolve, by continuing to remind myself, this is what I look like, this is my image, that's great, let's have fun with it. I think that's super important to me. I think, again, right now I'm just trying to see how it can resonate with others, but yes, I will always continue to shoot myself, the camera, for sure.
Okay. And how do you balance shooting personal projects when you are working all day in a commercial studio as well?
I get asked this a lot, actually, but right now it has really been crucial to my personal work. Again, I have an amazing support system here. I can show my personal work and get feedback, just like I did in school with crits and critiques. I have that right at my hands. And in school, we again forced the kind of conceptual thinking, but it wasn't very technical. And now I'm working in a place that's the complete opposite. We're extremely technical, and that technical learning of knowledge is finding its way into my personal work, just making my work better. And I'm able to use the studio space on weekends, which is fabulous, and I'm so appreciative of that. So yeah, it's been amazing. And even if I'm shooting something that's e-commerce and quite boring, something on white, I'm still implementing techniques that I can use in my own practice.
It sounds like you've really landed on your feet, or you've landed a great job for the point you're at in your career right now. You're learning a lot. You've got lots of support, and you've got people who can give you feedback.
Totally. I'm like, again, so appreciative, and I feel like so lucky for my job. It's everything I could have wanted at this point in time, and it's been going great. So yeah, it's been really good.
Good. So I think that's a really good time to go to 6 from SheClicks. I've got 10 questions from SheClickers, and I'd like you to answer 6 questions, please, by picking numbers from 1 to 10. So could you let me have your first number, please?
I will do a 2.
Number 2. What is the funniest thing you've done to create a photo? That question's from Liz.
Oh my gosh. I'll have to think for a second because I've done some pretty crazy things. I'd say one of the funniest things I did, again, this is going back to college. It was in the middle of a snowstorm, and I went outside in high-heeled boots and with my tripod, and I pretended I was skiing on parking lines and cinder blocks. I pretended those were my ski boots, and I had so many college students walking around me, very curious what was going on. So that one's probably one of the funniest.
Oh, cool. Is that picture on your Instagram account?
It is. It's somewhere on there. You have to dig down, but I look like I'm skiing and I've got my hands like this.
I'll check it out. That sounds really funny. Okay. Can I have your second number then, please?
I'll do 4.
How do you make sure that your photography continues to evolve? That question's from Paula, and that could be from your commercial work or your personal projects.
I think shooting. Just shooting. Quantity over quality. You don't have to always be making the great image, but just making is important. So I try and implement that. Again, it's hard when you do work the same life that you want to be doing outside of work to kind of find that balance. But I still try and implement it in some ways, creativity in some ways.
That's a really important point, actually. Shooting a lot is very, very important because it's really easy to learn, to think you're learning new techniques by, say, watching YouTube or something like that. But actually, it doesn't really go in properly until you actually shoot the stuff and you develop that muscle memory and that understanding and, just develop some sort of connection with your camera, where your lights need to be, how colours work together, that kind of thing.
Totally. And I found that a lot, again, because I went from being a photo assistant to now recently I'm shooting more. So I'm having to implement the things I was watching for years. So that's also been implementing that same, practicing it.
Yeah, so I guess you were used to doing a lot of setting up, but not necessarily composing the picture. So that's a whole new sort of level of significance, isn't it?
Exactly. Totally.
Okay, so can I have your third number, please?
Sure. Let's do 6.
Oh, this is nice. I love your work with such differing subjects and styles. Where does your inspiration come from? And that's Penny. And I guess she's probably talking, having looked at your Instagram account and, seen all the variety of commercial work that you do.
I have lots of inspirations, but artist-wise, in school I was really big into a painter, Jenny Saville, who did all self-portraiture work, and I found that inspiring my photo work. And from a photographer perspective, I really love Parker Day, and she photographs other people with, again, this very kitschy, vibrant, bold lighting. So I gain a lot of my inspiration from just looking around at other artists and other people and other peers.
Do you ever find yourself walking down a street and you see a billboard advert, you think, oh, I want to do something like that, that's, in your commercial work? I mean, I know obviously you get a brief from your studio and your clients, but do you try and you see something and think, oh, we must try that with this one?
Oh, totally. We're always doing test shoots around here. So again, it's a room of a bunch of creatives, so we're always finding things that we want to try, or I don't know how they did this, but let's try and figure it out. And we have an amazing retouching team as well that we're able to collaborate with, so they can sometimes help figure out how something might have been shot.
Yeah. Actually, that is fun, isn't it, where you try to recreate something, because often you don't recreate it, but you end up creating something else that you really like instead.
Totally. Happens more often than not.
So can I have your fourth number, please?
I can't remember if I gave 8 or not. I don't think I did.
No, you didn't. Okay, so do you enter competitions and awards every year? And if you do, is it always the same one? How do you choose them? Well, you said that you used to, and you're thinking about entering more now. So what's your plan?
Yes. In school, again, I was entering a lot because it was a requirement for my curriculum. And since being out of school, I kind of took a little break entering things until last year when I entered the Pink Lady. That was, what's it called now? It's called something different now, I think.
Yeah, it's the World Food Photography Awards.
When I entered the World Food Photography Awards last year, it really got my spark going again. So I definitely plan on submitting to that again this coming year. And also trying to find some other submissions I can do just through Googling call for artists and any local galleries, because it reminded me how much I really do love seeing my work printed and on the wall.
Cool. I know you said that you find it best to go through your archives and find something that fits, but now that you've had this bit of success with the World Food Photography Awards and you're planning on entering again, is that kind of in the back of your mind and you're sort of thinking, well, if I do this and maybe I could evolve that, and, you know, just sort of coming up with something in the moment?
Absolutely. When I've been doing my swimsuit season photographs, I've been implementing some food in those photographs as well, because in the back of my mind, I know I want to maybe use a couple of them because it is a food-based photography competition. So, and again, that goes back to the little survey I had people fill out, which one of the questions I asked was, what is your favorite food?
Ah, good thinking.
Yes.
Okay, well, I look forward to seeing those entries. Can I have your fifth number, please?
How about 1?
All right. Do you do much post-processing of your image? Thinking perhaps of your self-portrait images or your product shots. Now, several people asked that, and you already mentioned you have a retouch team, but perhaps do you do more of your retouching yourself for your personal work?
Yes. So one of my favorite parts of the process is retouching my own photos, specifically for my personal project, because again, it takes me back to like this sensation of painting, because you're getting to use your image and change colors, and it kind of just extends that process. So I love that. As far as commercial work goes, though, we do have like a team of retouchers, which I would argue, but I'm a little biased, they're like the best retouchers ever, that they do a lot of our commercial work here for the studio, and they're incredible and do things I could never even know how to do. So that's kind of how that divides a little bit. But I'm always learning things from them, which is great. Great resource.
Yeah. I think it's fantastic watching people who are really good retouchers, because they're so quick and the changes that it can implement can be so dramatic too.
Totally. They're wild, and they just do things so fast, and there's so many different ways to do something. So I'm always learning.
Yeah. Okay. Your final number, please.
A 3.
Oh, now this is an interesting one. What is your process and setup for shooting self-portraits? And several people asked that.
My process for shooting self-portraits, it can be so random. Like, I never know I'm in the mood to take a photo until I am. But I do have, it's very random. But it's, again, something I actively try and do on the regular basis. But I usually keep it rather candid for myself. It's in the moment for the most part when I need it. But I have a tripod, I have a Canon camera, and then I have the Canon Connect app on my phone. So I'm able to be tethered through my phone and shoot that way. So you might look at my page and see some photos where my phone's in it, and it's most likely because I was shooting with my remote trigger through my phone. Got
you. So your BLT contemplation image, was that a spur of the moment? Had you just got out of the shower, made yourself a BLT and thought, oh, the light's fantastic, I'll get a photo? Or was that a bit more planned?
No, that was not planned. I had just gotten out of the shower. Before I got in the shower, I was taking a lot of photos for a crit coming up. And so I already had my camera out on the tripod, but I went and took a shower. And then when I came out of the shower, my roommate at the time had made me dinner. So she handed me this plate with a BLT on it. So I didn't even plan to have that for dinner. And then I was like, this light is beautiful. And it was actually at sunset. So my tripod was already up, and I just took the shot from there. And so, yeah, that one was really spur of the moment. It's not always like that, but that one was.
Wow, I'm amazed. But that's perfect. It's lovely that it all came together like that.
Totally. And I would also say that was like a moment, again, of contemplation, because I had just gotten out of the bathroom. I was looking in the mirror. I was kind of feeling self-conscious about myself. And So a little bit more like a image where I was reflecting and thinking, and I think that shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely does. It looks like you're enjoying the BLT as well.
It was delicious. Can't go wrong.
Well, Delaney, thank you so much for joining me on the She Clicks Women in Photography podcast. It's been really lovely chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I was so excited and, I'm very passionate about women in photography, so this was a great fit for me.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening to this episode of the She Clicks Women in Photography podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Special thanks to everybody who sent in a question. You'll find links to Delaney's website and social media channels in the show notes. I'll be back with another episode soon, so please subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast platform and tell all your friends and followers about it. You'll also find She Clicks on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and YouTube if you search for She Clicks Net. So until next time, enjoy your photography.